Hey everybody, What's It Fox Gaming here. I've got a brand new PvE build video for you today. I was lucky enough to obtain the vial after much farming in the Dark Zone for experience. So this is going to be showcasing the best way to play the vial. This is designed to add some damage, quite a lot of damage potentially, to status effect builds. The way that the vial is obtained is in TU10. Season 2, at level 90 of your season pass you will obtain the vial automatically, at which point it just appears in the general loot pool of the game and you could just get this as drops from targeted loot and so on. So if you once you get the mask, I would recommend running this with any status effect build. The reason for that is it's just going to benefit your team even more. So I'll read out the talent and I'll explain the best way to build around it if you want to go for raw damage, and also the build that you want to use if you want to be more of a team player and just sort of buff your team or allow your team to do more damage instead of just you taking all the damage. That's the less fun way, and I like to play this very selfishly, and ultimately if you're getting more kills and more damage then that's helpful to your team anyway. So, Toxic Delivery, the talent of the vial. Status effects also apply a damage over time debuff for 10 seconds. Total damage dealt is equal to 50% of your concussion grenade damage and increased by your status effect attributes. Now, I spent, oh goodness, the best part of an hour, probably longer, trying so many different combinations of how to buff this damage as high as possible. And the loadout that you see in front of you is the single highest damage that I've been able to come up with. Nothing trumps this. I tried China Light with some Grupo, because Grupo also buffs explosive damage if you get 2 pieces. The reason that you do want to spec into explosive damage is that buffs your concussion grenade damage, which is of course where Vial's damage is calculated from. So you want to run a piece of China Light, ideally, well I say ideally, specifically the chest piece, and you want to run it with glass cannon. If that's a bit risky for you, if you want to take this into the Dark Zone, you don't want to be as squishy with glass cannon, you can consider running this with something else, Tag Team or possibly Overwatch. Even Spotter if you ran it with Technician and put your linked laser pointer on the Harmony rifle, because that pulses every enemy you look at, and Spotter gives you 15%. Overwatch gives you 12%, but of course none of those numbers are 25%, so we're not going to look at that today. So glass cannon on a China Light, this will buff your explosive damage by 15%, which in turn buffs your grenade by 15%, which in turn buffs your vial damage. You see where we're going here. You may have already noticed that I've opted to go for the Demolitionist specialization tree. The reason for that is it also buffs your explosive damage by 15%. Now traditionally status effect builds will always use Survivalist because that buffs damage to status affected targets from anybody in your team by 10%, which is pretty good, and that's the more team player version of this build where you'd run Survivalist, but this out damages it. The extra 15% grenade damage just makes it better. The reason that you want to run Eclipse Protocol in this exact combination and not run the chest piece and run the backpack is because the backpack offers a multiplicative damage buff. The Symptom Aggravator amplifies all damage that you deal to status affected targets by 15%, and that includes Vial, includes your skills, it includes your dots, it's everything, your weapon damage. So this is the best way to run it. Of course, as you know from my previous video, or hopefully if you've seen that, you do get the 15% status effects from Eclipse, and when you do kill an enemy, it does spread that around the room, and you're going to be getting a lot of kills with this build. Trust me, this is a raw damage build, and it's super fun to play. So yeah, that's the best sort of combination there. The 4-piece Eclipse with the backpack in particular, all rolled into status effects as high as you can get it on every single piece, and the China Light chest piece with glass cannon in conjunction with Demolitionist. You do want to be running Harmony. It's very important that you run Harmony, and I will explain why. There's a little bit of misconception around Perfectly in Sync, and I've been told the wrong thing from a few people online, in subreddits, forums, in my clan. I'm here to correct what a lot of people seem to believe, and I understand why they believe this, because the talent description is quite clear. Hitting an enemy with a bullet gives you 20% skill damage. It's always nice. And then if you deploy or damage an enemy with a skill, you get 20% weapon damage. If they're both active at the same time, it doubles both the buffs, so 40% skill damage. Now, most people, or in my instance anyway, I don't know if this is true for yourselves, but most people have told me that you need to shoot your weapon before you deploy a skill in order to get the 20%. That is simply not true. And what Perfectly in Sync also does is it buffs status effect dots, so fire and bleed. It's not supposed to, I don't think, but it does, because skill damage typically doesn't do that. It's usually status effects that do. So most people will tell you that you need to fire your bullet first and then deploy your skill. Not true. The best way to play it with Harmony is to fire the Chem launcher first and then immediately swap to your Harmony and shoot the enemy that's within that circle. Because the bullet lands before the explosion goes off, it buffs not only the explosion but also the dot as well, the damage over time. So that's the burn or the bleed depending on what you're doing. None of this double tap nonsense to deploy it. You just fire it out, instantly swap, shoot. Now the little red symbol that you see there is... oh my goodness. See, this is how strong it is, it's crazy. So the little red symbol that you see there is the vial. Now it lasts for 10 seconds. You can't rebuff that. It has to run out before it can be redeployed on the same enemy, so just bear that in mind. So that's the best way to do it. It's true for your Seeker mine as well. If you fire your Seeker out just before it hits, fire your weapon, you still get the damage debuff. So run Harmony with this because it's going to give you a massive buff there. The reason that I'm running the Seeker here, as you just noticed, with the Firestarter is that these both have, or both are buffed by explosive damage. The Seeker, the Stinger Hive, I don't think it is. I didn't test it, but I don't think it's ever been explosive damage, so please correct me if I'm wrong there. But this is still an effective way to apply bleed whilst applying huge damage, because of course both of these, the explosion from the gas cloud and of course the explosion from this detonating, are buffed by China Light and Demolitionist. So this exact combo will get you, honestly, just crazy damage numbers. I've tested this so many different ways and this is the best way. If you want to play this as a more team-centric build, so if you want to be a little bit more selfless, what you want to do is run the chest piece and a Creeping Death backpack. Ideally China Light, because it will still buff your own damage, but you can run Wyvern or Hannah, or probably Golan is best because that gives you 10% status. As long as it's spec'd into skill tier and status effects, that's fine. And you also want to run the Survivalist specialization, because then not only are you buffing your entire team's damage by 10%, Creeping Death does stack with Eclipse, and the chest spreads the duration even further. So instead of it being 15 meters, it's 20 meters. It just helps your team out. But I'm happy to sort of lose out on the extra range, just because I know that I can burn down anything that's in my face very quickly and just constantly keep, redeploying my skills. So play it this way with specialization if you're going to run it in Legendary. This works very well in Legendary, by the way, but you will need to be using the Blind and the EMP or Riot Foam there for Legendary. And yes, File does still work with those as well. So what we're going to do is load into a mission. Once I've taken off the stupid shock trap, I don't know why on earth I've got that on. Let's just go Grand Washington. I don't really care where we go. We're going to run it on a heroic. I'm going to do it solo as well, so this might be a little bit hairy running glass cannon, so again just bear that in mind. The option I've gone for here is the highest damage, but it is going to be a little bit squishy and dangerous to play, so this might be better in a team. I just want to demonstrate the raw power of this build. The good news with Demolitionist is you do get bleed grenades as well, so it's another way to apply that status effect. But yeah, I've been absolutely loving this mask, it's fantastic. I've been having so much fun with it. It helps if you start the mission, by the way, that's a good little trick for you.
You're right next to the Grand Washington Hotel.
Okay, so always enter a room with the fire chem in your hands, because you want to do that little combo. Wait, where? Oh, okay. It also helps once you start the mission if you take the correct route. These are all little tricks that I recommend. Right, let's just watch those instantly die. Crazy. It's crazy damage. I guarantee if you run this with a team, you will take top damage, and probably top kills as well, even without the chest piece giving you the extra range and Creeping Death buffing that range even further. You don't need it, everything's already dead. Stop. Oh, whoops. Okay, I'll tell you what.
It might be a diversion, so be ready.
Let's get the beat on this guy. So many status effects.
Hostile radio intercepted.
Yeah, so
I'm heading heading upstairs.
It's
to the
pretty lethal,
hostage.
as you can see.
Everybody, get
Now,
to
obviously, it's
the
not going to
atrium.
one-shot absolutely everything in the room, but it kind of almost
Same
nearly
here.
does. So, and when it
Bringing
doesn't
a
kill,
big
your
shot.
team are going to
Really
clear up,
unpleasant.
and if they
We
don't,
need
if
to
you're playing
kill this
solo,
asshole.
you know, the other reason to use Sync is you're getting 40% weapon damage just from using a skill and shooting an enemy, so that kind of helps fill in the gap for even more damage. You always want to try and target the sort of weaker enemies in the room first, because it's best to kill them to spread it. So don't go for the big chungers. Start with the weak boys, and then go from there.
He went all the way to the top floor. Take the stairs to the
It's
right.
crazy. I
I
barely had to do anything. This build is mental. Now, of course, you don't have to watch this video all the way through to the end. I will probably put a timestamp for the damage stats. Oh no, actually that makes no sense. I'm the only person in this mission. Okay, no, do you know what? You do have to watch the video all the way through. But yeah, you know, if you want to farm this mask, play the Dark Zone, just do landmarks. You get a roughly 200 to 300k per landmark. Ooh, that's... Ow. Yeah, so you do want to do... Okay, we won't do the whole mission, that's fine. We don't need to anyway. That was enough demonstration.
You're right next to the Grand
So,
Washington Hotel.
if you want to get
Okay, here
to
we
Season
go.
Pass level 90,
That should get there. Head to
it's
the
not
service
actually that
entrance on the east
difficult.
side of
You
the
just
building.
need to farm the Dark Zone. So as I was saying before, you do hit about 200 to 300k in the ODZ, the Occupied Dark Zone, for every challenging and heroic that you hit up. And for each Season Pass level, it's exactly 700k that's needed. So it's a really efficient farm. There are certain cheeses that you can do. There's a particular cheese in the Kajika mission. I'm not really a fan of... I don't want to call it an exploit because it's not an exploit. You know, you can farm XP however the hell you want. Control points are really good. Missions not so much. You know, you get about 300-400k, probably more from all the enemies that you kill. But missions take too long, so just get yourself in the Dark Zone. Get around those landmarks. Just put on a farming build, and if rogues start giving you a hard time, then you know just change server. But honestly, get to level 90, get this mask, try out this build, and please let me know in the comments what you think. I think this is fantastic. It's one of the most fun builds I've ever played in Division history. This very specific combination of weapons and exotics and the gear set is just beautiful. It's so much synergy, it's unreal. So we'll leave the video there. If you did stick through to the end, again, I appreciate you doing so, and thank you for the love and support of the channel. It's continually growing, which I'm really happy about. If you do like the content, a like and a subscribe do go a long way for me, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace!